Hey, sportsman, John Bergsman here from the Great Lakes Insider Fishing Report, and we're coming to you today from the northwest corner of actually our central Michigan, our I-75 corridor fishing report. And we're joined today on the phone by a brand new participant, John from MFM. Is that right? MFM Guide Service, John?
That is. It's MFM Sport Fishing.
Okay, MFM Sport Fishing. And John guides both the Sheboygan, the Port of Sheboygan for the Great Lakes fishery from spring to fall. And then he also guides year-round a new boat, a new adventure for John, year-round on Burt Lake, and may even be able to talk him into going on Mullet Lake too. We'll have to see. But he's going to bring us a great initial fall report from Burt Lake today. And as always, at the end, we'll have John's contact information at the bottom of the screen. If somebody's looking to get out fishing with John, he'll be glad to take you. John, what do you got for us? What's going to go on here? I know the weather has really transitioned here in the last week from dead of summer basically until the first day of spring, and now all of a sudden it's decided to go to fall in a big way.
Absolutely. Like you said, with the way the weather's been, it's definitely, we're transitioning into fall, which is definitely going to get the fish a little more active.
Beautiful. What species or two or three are you looking for here in the next 30 days to become very targetable and catchable there on Burt Lake?
Well, definitely the walleye. A lot of people love chasing walleye on Burt Lake, and it can be a good fishery, and some days it can be a tough fishery.
Sure. But I think part of that, John, is understanding the fishery, is it not? I mean, a lot of guys make the mistake. I know I've lived here and been an avid walleye fisherman for 29 years. I think the mistake people make about Burt Lake is they don't give it enough chances. Would you say that's true, that they don't get enough experience, enough days on the water?
That is absolutely probably said the best that it can be said, because with the size of Burt Lake, you give it one day and you just cannot cover the ground that you really need to cover out there to find the active fish.
Right. What presentation are you going to use here in the next 2 to 4 weeks to target walleyes there on Burt Lake? And generally, what type of structures would you be looking for?
Well, right now we're coming off of a halfway decent crawler harness bite, on bottom bouncers. And we're mainly, right now we're kind of in the deeper flats and, in the midday hours, and then coming into the evenings, I'm switching over to the crankbaits and trying to run in a little bit shallower.
Are you still looking for those fish, John, that are what you would term suspended rather than I call suspended fish that are more than 3 or 4 feet off the bottom? Anything within 2 or 3 feet off the bottom, to me, that's a bottom-orientated fish. Are these fish suspended, or are they kind of both, depending on the time of day?
Yeah, right now it's kind of a mix. We have a lot of the smaller fish are suspended right now, and the bigger fish are staying tight to the bottom. Is
Sure.
What I'm finding right now out there.
Yep, and so when you're going, whether it's crawler harnesses or crankbaits, are you targeting the smaller to mid-size fish in that suspended zone for most of your effort? Would you say that's a fair statement?
Yeah, I would say that's a fair statement. Definitely. I'm definitely not out there looking for trophies every time.
That's good.
I'm like everybody else, looking for a good box of eaters.
Exactly. And, there's nothing better. People who haven't had success on Burt Lake don't know that these are extraordinarily high-quality eating fish. These 16 to 21-inch fish there are just awesome eating fish.
Absolutely. And I say they have shoulders on them out there.
Yeah, they're not thin fish. I know a lot. Burt Lake has got a bad rap at times because of how much it can hand you a goose egg on days. But on the flip side, I've gone out there before where it handed you, or not you, but me, 10 fish with 2 guys in the boat trolling crawler
Absolutely.
harnesses behind tadpoles. I
Yep.
run one of my favorite presentations out there. Now it might be starting to wind up a little bit right now and go over to crankbaits, is to pull tadpoles with 6-foot leads to a spinner, and just
Yep.
and you just find what depth they're going in, whether it's 18 down over 35 or 22 down over 30 over 40. You've got to find that area of the lake where you've got some concentration of fish.
Yep.
And then the second thing is to find that depth down that those fish are wanting that presentation at. Are you finding that the same thing for you?
Absolutely. It's funny you mentioned that, because I just showed my buddy that trick with the tadpole and with a crawler harness behind it yesterday.
Yeah.
And it was pretty productive for us.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the other
Yep.
things that people fail to realize, John, and I'm going to hold a bait up right now, a big jumbo size P10, which is a Smithwick P10, a big custom color bait. I've also had some really good success running, rogues and P10s or Rapalas and stuff. Same thing, 6-8 foot behind a tadpole, using the tadpole as the way to get the lure down. It seems to me like in the fall, those fish really transition away from that really big, aggressive, deep diving bait to wanting more of that slow roll action of the shallow lip bait. Do you find that as well?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I like using the reef runners a lot right now, because I could slow it down a little bit and you get a lot of wobble action out of them.
Exactly. That side-to-side wobble is huge. And do you find colors, for me at least in the past, colors have really been critical. Like I can have 2 or 3 colors that are putting fish in the box, and it seems like everything else doesn't even exist.
Yeah, I've tried a lot, and it just seems like they're wanting the darker colors right now.
Yeah, beautiful.
And I've tried throwing everything I can in my box at them, and it seems like the old purples and even some blacks, they're loving the dark colors.
Exactly. Now, do you, when you're out guiding, do you prefer to fish walleyes, but you're willing to fish smallmouth? What's your target species there on Burt for your customers?
Well, I'm mainly going to focus on walleye, and there's a great perch fishery on Burt Lake too.
Now, talk to me about that. Is that perch fishery viable for how late into the fall? How late can a guy go and actually have good success?
I think you're going to have good success all the way up until there's ice out there, to be honest with you.
Does it get a little bit better the colder it gets, even though it's tough to sit in your boat?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Well, I think you and I, what you're saying right there is that's a perfect recipe for us to do some filming up in Indian River here in the next 30 days, because I'm a perch junkie. Our viewers,
Aren't we all?
Yeah, exactly. Our viewers are perch junkies. They love perch. They love walleye. And so I think we're going to have some great conversations. Are you pretty well done over on Sheboygan right now? Is that bite pretty well done?
Yeah, we're pretty much wound down up there. I'll probably be pulling the boat out up there, within the next week or so.
I know.
And I'll be transitioning fully to the smaller lakes.
Beautiful, and I know that I know that you love ice fishing as well. So we're gonna have plenty of great conversations from now until you're dumping your boat back in next spring in Sheboygan. John,
absolutely.
If you're looking for John's information, it'll be up on the screen. John, thank you so much for your first video fishing report. We look forward to a ton more. We'll talk to you again in a couple of weeks.
Yep. Thanks a lot, John. And we'll talk to you guys later.
You bet. Thanks.
Thanks.
So just a quick recap. I know a lot of you, I jumped right into what John does there because it's really is John Kennedy from MFM Guide Service and Sport Fishing. And I'm familiar with the bite on Burt Lake, having past tournament fished a few times there, and a really good friend of the show, John Jansen, spent a lot of time on Burt Lake as well, and shot a great show with his son Jack last year, showing you that tadpole crawler harness bite. And you should jump on our website at fishermansdigest.com and pull up in our season 3 history. You'll see that little kid holding a walleye. That's little Jack, we call him, and that's a very informative show. It'll teach you a lot about how to catch those walleyes on Burt Lake. But there's 3 great bites going to go on Burt Lake for the next 2 months. The first one being walleye. The second one right next to it is going to be that progressively better perch bite. And there's also a very unspoken about smallmouth bass bite that gets really, really good during the month of October. We're almost to October right now. Maybe by the time you see this report, it'll be October. But that smallmouth bass bite with soft plastics on the shallow rock riff edges, right at the break lines where the big sandbars will tumble down in. There's lots of critical spots there on Burt that'll hold some really, really good smallmouth bass. It's a great time to be out on Burt Lake. Thanks so much for joining us for this insider fishing report from the Indian River area and Burt Lake.